Hello, and today we're very lucky at RTL today to welcome Minister Meisch, who is an extremely busy man and is giving us some of his precious time to explain the current situation. Minister Meisch, thank you so much for this time. I know it is very hectic for all of the government. First of all, could you tell us when it first came to pass within the government structure, when you thought urgency has to take place, many steps have to take place, not just within the education system, but across the country?
The first time I was confronted with the question, do we have to close all the schools now, is now exactly 7 weeks ago, on the 12th of March. It was when the Prime Minister gave me a phone call in the morning around 10 o'clock, and he asked me if it's not possible to close the schools for 2 weeks. Now we closed already for 7 weeks, and there will go on some more weeks before all the pupils can return back to school. It was a big improvisation necessary when we closed down all the schools. I want to thank all the actors, the teachers, the directors, the headmasters, but also the parents and the pupils themselves, because they really engaged, give a large engagement just to realize what we did during the last weeks, to learn on distance, to learn not in school, but to learn at home. So teachers, they still follow their pupils, they instruct their pupils, they see if their pupils are working or if they're not working. And a lot of parents, they do the same. It's really a large teamwork now that's going on and that's taking place. In all our houses and in each family.
Absolutely, and we'll come to that later, because we're both parents and it is not always easy. So just thinking back to those 7 weeks ago and the sudden rollout of homeschooling, how did your team organize such a complex structure right from the early years up to university level?
I have a very dynamic team, and we're present here from the early morning, late at night, and we're working really hard with all our headmasters out there, with a lot of persons that are collaborating, because we have to take decisions day by day, and we are creating new situations day by day. We are confronted with new information, and we have to react on that. Now, for some days already, we are preparing the reopening of the schools. A lot of communication has been done to inform all the pupils, the teachers, the parents, what will go on, what will be the next steps, what they have to do now at this moment, because communication can't take place any longer in our schools, but we have to address directly all the pupils, all the teachers, and all the headmasters. That's an important part of our job we are doing for the moment. And of course, we are strongly collaborating with all the governmental health structures and health organizations, just to have the right information. How can we now reopen our schools? With which restrictions we can work in our schools. That's why, for example, we are working with half classes when school will reopen for next Monday, and also for all the other secondary schools and primary schools, just to have a restricted number of pupils per class, and so to allow a certain distance between one pupil to another pupils, between the pupils and the teachers, and so on. So also the face has to be covered, the mouth has to be covered, just to make sure that nobody will be infected, no pupils and no teachers, and that school time can take place now with a lot of safety measures, just to respect all the restrictions that are imposed by the health structures.
And just thinking about that transition we have now from homeschooling to gradually going back to school. Firstly, how has homeschooling gone in your own home, since you are so busy?
With a lot of engagement, a lot of improvisation also. I have 3 children, 2 in primary schools, 1 in secondary school. The older boy, he worked quite autonomously, and even my wife and I were not really needed to follow him and to make him work. He works a lot during all this time, and he followed the instructions of his of his teachers and collaborated and communicated a lot also with his colleagues from class and his friends from his own class. Yeah, it's another question when you have pupils in the primary school. There, the parents they are really they have to work with them. They have to instruct them. They have to show them what has been done, and they also have to show them all those digital tools that are necessary now and that are used now, because it was not so regular that they worked with that. It was really the first time they used that. And also, I have to admit that it was also our first time we used those digital tools to communicate and to teach. But I think after a few days, it worked better. It worked better because the teachers and the parents, they adapted themselves and they communicated a lot, and they are really ready now, and they reach a very high level of quality in this type of homeschooling, even if it was not exercised before.
Yes, I think everybody, teachers, parents and students have all learned a lot of technical skills and other types of learning skills. But I just want to think about perhaps single parents who've had to do this alone, perhaps whilst also trying to work from home. And I know of some families where not everybody has individual access to computers. We all understand that these are exceptional times. Do you think there'll be any sort of catch-up lessons in place for those who haven't had the opportunity of parents with the language skills at home or the computer opportunities at home?
First of all, I recommend it to all our teachers to be very flexible and to see and to understand what is the situation of the family. Are there two parents at home? Is there one parent at home? Do they have to do their own home office during all this time, or they really have the time to occupy themselves with their children and to follow all the schoolwork at home? That makes really an important difference. It also makes a difference if you have perhaps one child, two child, three child from different classes. That really makes a difference, and we have to be very flexible, and we have to understand that there are so many different situations. Then I think that now, after this long period of homeworking, homeschool, I think it's important now to bring the pupils back to school, and of course to adapt that, to work with them with all this stuff that has been learned at home, to see what really they had done, and to bring them back to the same level just to close the school year, and to make sure that they had learned all those things that are really necessary to start the next school year. That's also why we consulted our teachers to concentrate themselves now during the period of homeschooling, and also during the next weeks until the summer holidays, just to concentrate themselves on the main topics that are really important to follow the next school year.
And when it comes to the ministry structure, there are many organizations here in Luxembourg. We have ISL, St. George's, the European School. Do they all listen to your recommendations, or have they autonomous choices?
They have some autonomy, but they ask us day by day what they will do and what we consider to do, just to have a same approach between the public schools, private schools, international schools, Luxembourgish schools, and it was really good collaboration between all those different actors during the last weeks. I think in such a crisis, people, they work stronger together, and they get closer together. We are all confronted with new situations, and it's good for us to work together and to find the best solutions for each actor together.
We are now, as you've mentioned before, looking at the slow rollout of reintegration into society. It feels like for so many of us, we're hearing more cars on the road. It feels a little bit busier, and day by day, the children will return to school, a little bit like the Pied Piper, perhaps. we've also seen there's petitions out, the unions have something to say, you're having information coming at you from all different angles. When you are slightly under siege yourself, because you're trying to think about healthcare, also the economy, of course, because so many parents need to return to a workplace where they need to be physically present, how do you come to what you feel is the right decision?
I think my first responsibility are the interests of the children, and of course to guarantee that they are in a health environment when they will come back to school. But of course to guarantee also that we can go back to school to learn something, because that's the main topic, the most important topic of a school system. And we tried that in a type of homeschooling during the last weeks. But now they can come back to school, even if it's just 1 week after another. And we also have 1 week that they just can come on a mandatory base, and they can also stay at home for that week, just because we have to work with little numbers of pupils in one class to adapt all the restrictions imposed by the health structure. So that's why when pupils come back now to school, school will be another school as they knew it before the closing of the school. But it's important now to bring them back. I think a lot of them, a lot of the pupils, a lot of the children, they want to return to school. They want to see their friends. They want to see their teachers. They want to have a social life also, because they were closed in their homes, in their houses, and that for a very, very long time. And as we as adults too, we want to come in contact with other human beings. We want to see our friends. We want to get in the pub and get a drink, for example, or book a restaurant for the evening. So it's the same reflex that we see with our children. And I think it's very, very important now for their development to bring them back to school, not just to learn, but also to develop their social competences. Because staying at home with all the time the same family around you, perhaps they can't see if they are the one. If you have just one child at home, it's on his own, and children need to see other children to develop their social competences. That's also a very, very important aspect. And we try to integrate that or in a large plan of deconfinement for the whole government, where of course we had to consider also other interests, the economic interest, the social economic interest, the labor market interest, the interest of different families. And that it was my job to see on the interest and to see that the interest of the children, they are also respecting during this period of deconfinement. And I think we choose the right way now to bring children back to school, and one after another. We start with all the A-level classes, exam classes, at first on the 4th of May, then all the other pupils for the secondary school, because we believe that they are more able to consider and to respect all the restrictions that are imposed now when they come back to school. And then finally, for the 25th of May, we will start again with the primary schools. And I think that that time also another part of the social life will restart in Luxembourg. People go out, they can see perhaps their friends, I hope so. And that will be something very natural at that point, at that date, the 25th of May, just to bring your children to school and to let them go with their friends and have a good time.
Do you think that we will have the half term in June as was originally planned? And alongside that, do you think that we will have a later start to the summer holidays or an earlier return in September?
I think that when all the children, but also all the parents and all the teachers, when they need it really for 1 year, this holidays, it's this year. Because we all stayed at home. We all did a different type of work as we were used to. Also teachers, they reinvent to teach during all this period of homework. the children, they stayed at home. They can't see their friends. They can't go out to play. They were no longer on football training or to theater courses and or music courses that just didn't exist at that period. And now I think it's just fair when society will come back and will be opened and all the people can go back and have a social life. It's just fair to let them go to their holidays. They really need it now.
You've mentioned a couple of things there, and I know that we don't know all of the details yet, but when it comes to sport, for example, group sport activities like football or hockey or ice skating, whatever it is, and also music, choirs, for example, we've been told by the Conservatoire that they can't return probably till September. Do you know what will happen in this case?
Yes, there's no date defined to when all those activities can restart. But for one simple reason, we will start now the schools, and it's very important when we go back to schools to keep the pupils and the children in a little group of persons, and to avoid that they will mix each others and they will confront each other to pupils from other groups. No? Because we want, if the virus, and it is somewhere, we have to learn to live now with this virus. And so we want to keep it in a little group. And to avoid that, we'll go also and affect other pupils from other groups. And that's just why we have to be very strict in that, and that the pupils, they just can't live in this little group at school and then go home. And during a certain period, we can't just allow all the other activities as music courses, as theater courses, as football training, or just to go out and play on the playground, because there they will meet other children from other classes, and that's a risk that the COVID-19 virus will be spread larger. And we just now in a phase that we want to avoid that. And I hope so, I really hope so, that we will see very soon the point where we can say, it's okay now, the virus is still there, but children, they can go out and play, they can return back to the football club or to other private and social activities. I'm really waiting for this moment, and I know that all the children, they are waiting for this. And for the moment, it's too dangerous. We did very good work here in Luxembourg to avoid that the virus will spread very largely. We really count the development of the virus in Luxembourg, and that's very important now to stay in this situation and not to allow the COVID-19 virus to come back and to spread the whole society in a few weeks. It's that the main point. Now we want to reopen the society. We want to reopen some activities. We want to give freedom back to people and also to young people, to children, but without giving too many place to the virus. That's just what we try to do, and we have no experience with that. So we have to do one step after the other, and for each step we are waiting for a certain evaluation and see how the virus will react on that, if we have new infections, if we have too many new infections, and then we can adapt this plan.
And thinking about your remit, it goes all the way up to university and research as well. Does the University of Luxembourg and other higher institutions along the same lines as the university, do they make their own choices as to whether they will have final exams?
They did largely their own choices, but mostly it was in a certain contact and communication between the Ministry of Higher Education and Research and between the University of Luxembourg. And of course, they had to follow all the restrictions imposed by the government. When all the other schools were closed, the courses at the university were shut down too. That's true. University is another situation because e-learning is something very usual at the university. So now a lot of people, a lot of students, they are following their courses just on a digital way. And yeah, this situation, the lockdown there's not so many consequences for them. The university took some decisions just to give some more months to do all the exams. So they had the semester was enlarged just to give the opportunity to all the students to do their exams. And if perhaps there's one or another student that just can pass this exam for, and perhaps it's for the reasons of this lockdown, it will have the student will have a second chance to pass this exam. So I think that all the university did, and that is I appreciate a lot, and I encourage the university to go in that way and to work with a lot of flexibility, as the whole society has to do in this moment.
And just thinking about research, we hear from certain countries and a wonderful worldwide global collaboration between pharmaceutical companies as well. Luxembourg is famous for certain aspects for the economy, but pharmaceutical companies hasn't yet been one of them. Do you think with what has happened now and your new capacity looking after research, higher research too, you'll think about encouraging the university to enlarge a chemistry section and to encourage more pharmaceutical companies to want to come to work in Luxembourg?
I'm very happy to see that we have really a large competence now in the research sector in Luxembourg that can be very useful and helpful during this COVID crisis, because we have created a research task force, and that's collaborating with the government, advises the government, but it's also organizing some research work on its own. Just do their research projects, do their publications, and that's just what we need now. We need to know more about this virus. We need, when we are to learn to live with the virus, we need to know it, how it works, how it goes through the society, who infects who in society. So those are the most important questions now. And I know that we have a lot of searchers in Luxembourg in different institutions at the university, but also in the other public and private research institutions that really concentrate themselves now on the research to help political decision makers, but also other actors to find the way out of this crisis.
Minister Meisch, thank you so much for your time, so precious at the moment. And also, of course, in your position as a politician, you can't please everybody, and we don't know what will come yet. We don't know if there'll be a second bout of COVID-19 as we move into autumn and coming back to school. It hasn't been easy, homeschooling, not for parents, nor pupils, nor teachers, but I suppose everybody knows that we're all in the same boat, and I would also say that many of us would like to see a slow and healthy return to society for us all. So thank you so much.
Thank you too.